Okay, good morning. Magandang umaga po sa inyo lahat. At kami po bumabati. This is international, meron sa Pilipinas, meron sa labas. This is One Vote TV, isang boto ko sagrado. Kahit to sabi ko sa inyo, kahit matapos po eleksyon, we will have this para maano natin, mag-grade natin lahat ng tumakbo, yung mga promises nila and everything. So, mamaya ko na introduce yung guest natin, pero bumati ka muna, Attorney Faith Pakis.
Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. Salamat po sa patuloy niyong pakikinig sa atin pong programa. Yan po.
Okay, thank you. Si Attorney Faith Pakis po, para maintindihan nyo, siya po ang anak ng isang kaibigan natin na si Dr. Alea Pakis, yung nanalo ang nurse party list yung 2016 election. Pero ngayon, they're helping One Vote Our Hope movement. 2016 Congress, tama, no? 16 Congress nakaupo si mama mo, di ba? Opo. So, opo. Maganda po ngayon. So, pababatiin muna natin ang ating kasama, si Brother Ernie Abella. Alam natin na tumakbo rin siyang presidente nitong last election. Nakasama ko po sa Davao yan. Naging pastor ko rin. So, kaya natin siya iniimbita para makatulong sa mga insights natin gagawin about the Philippine election. So, again, Brother Ernie, please give us your welcome remarks. Batiin mo muna ang nakikinig.
Magandang umaga po sa lahat. Una-una sa iyo, Joe, no? At saka kay Attorney Faith, at saka po sa lahat na nakikinig, si Brother Rudy Cargado, and yung inyong constituents, yung mga viewers niyo all over the world. Magandang umaga po, and thank you so much for the invitation at nakakatuwa po for the privilege of makasalamuha po kayo. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Ernie. Attorney Faith, ako muna magtatanong Sabihin lang natin, tinatanong ako lagi, ano ba nag-led kay Yusek Ernie Abella na tumakbo sa presidency? Siguro you give us a little background on that situation. Yusek Ernie. Okay.
Yung siguro, mahalaga na ma-share ko muna yung kung saan ako nagagaling. Tulad nung nag-usap tayo kanina before the actual streaming. Laking simbahan ako I grew up in a liberal Protestant church. So, laging nandyan yung sense na if you're a believer, meron kang social responsibility. So, nandyan talaga yan. But that was growing up in a Protestant church. Ang nangyari is I was growing up, and in my young adulthood, I got born again. Karoon ako ng personal crisis experience. So nakita ko yung need for a personal relationship, not just a social dimension, hindi lang horizontal dimension, kundi yung vertical dimension. Naging mahalaga sa akin yun. And of course, yung experience ko with Pentecostal disciples, the experience of the Spirit was very, very strong. Anyway, ang nangyari is part of my growing up experience was hearing from God. Yung, hindi ba, you're familiar with mga youth with the mission, yung lagi sila may tanong, is that really you, God? That sort of thing. Anyway, long story short, I also went to seminary, so balansyado naman yung aking hearing from God with historical critical understanding of scriptures. So I more or less had a pretty whole brain experience of my faith. Pero nagtanong ka kung So anyway, like I said, yung hearing from God, yung being led by the Spirit was part of my own experience. And so kumbaga, hindi ba laking Davao tayo So, but anyway, noong 2015, lumipat kami, nag-divest kami from Davao. I sold my property, sold everything. And then I transferred to Tagaytay. Doon ako nagkaroon ng sense na Well, I was not connected with Digong, with Duterte, with anybody. Doon ako nagkaroon ng sense na dapat tumakbo ako. But going back, it was just an urging to this urge, this compulsion, this understanding that I should be involved. I got this leading when mga 2016, first quarter of 2016. Pero nung tawag nito, wala akong kakontak-kontak, but in July of 2016, doon ako nagkaroon na tinawag ako ng transition team ni Digong, and then that's when I became part of government. And that's when I had the sense na mukhang tama yung mukhang tama yata yung leading ko to be involved in government. And so yun, but finally I had to but may mga nangyari pa, but that's for another time. Pero eventually, 2018, I had some sort of a confirmation. So in 2020, I called up the office of the president and sabi ko sa kanila na I'm running for president, and that meant automatically that I was considered resign. So it was a pretty big leap of faith, Pero it was an understanding. It was born out of conviction, Joe. Born out of conviction. People think that I was parang placeholder, pinilagay lang ako dyan, but no, it was not at the instigation of anybody, especially not PRRD. So, but anyway, I had this sense of a call, and I quote unquote obeyed, stepped out in faith. Yun.
Good. So anyway, nandito na si Atty. Batas, then bumati ka muna, Atty. Batas, then you can have your question also. Okay, Atty. Batas.
Maraming salamat po, Pastor Jojo, Atty. Faith, and Secretary Ernie Abella. Well, I am honored to be with you today because I've long wanted to ask a few questions about your participation in politics. And
Yes.
well, it was, as you were saying, indeed, a great leap of faith, especially because you run for the highest position of the land.
Correct.
I'm just curious to know and probably understand, what was it that you heard? What was it that inspired you to run and then run for the highest position of the land? Why the highest position of the land right away? Secretary Abella, thank you.
Yeah, because first and foremost, I'm not a politician. No? I'm not a politician. And kumbaga, my whole life has been, I consider myself my faith is integrated in my everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
So kung kunyari, my involvement in politics, I see it as an expression of the sense of, I see it as an expression of the character of God. Di ba? Well, long story short, kingdom of God is within you. What is the kingdom of God? According to Paul, it's righteousness, peace, and joy. So the expression of our life should be righteousness.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, going back to your question, what was it specifically? It was just a sense that I would be placed in the highest position.
Mm-hmm.
It was a sense, that well, let's put it at that muna, And looking back, I can see why. I have a number of, I have right now a fuller understanding of the whole thing. But of course, katulad ng ibang mga nakausap ko, sabi ko na, alam mo, I knew, sabi ng isa, that you wouldn't win, but I didn't tell you because you would be hurt. I mean, that's not rocket science, Hindi I mean, technically, I was really jousting at windmills. Hindi ba? Parang, hindi ba, ano bang ginagawa mo? What are you doing, guy? What are you doing? Pero so it was the conviction that changed the complexion of the campaign.
Uh-huh.
It was not whether you of course you believe that you would win. Martin Andanel would ask me, he interviewed me one time. Si Isaac Martin of PCOO, sabi niya, so what will you be doing after the election? Sabi ko sa kanya, I will be running the government. Sabi ko, bakit katatakbo kung iisipin mo matatalo ka, hindi ba? So, but the sense of, maybe the sense of call is really, it's really a different dimension. You're believers, alam niyo yan. You're in law, you're practicing law. How come you're a believer? You know everything that they say about being a lawyer. But anyway, going back, it was that sense. It was that that it would be a position of influence. And I begin to see that, for example, I consider this a God sent this invitation to this Jojo's invitation. Kasi actually, I'm in the process of writing my reflections. It's in a book, no, in a booklet. But I felt that to keep it fresh, I think it's important for me to be able to express to you guys some of the insight that I had. And I'm willing to share that with you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Opo. So, nandiyan na para si Atty. Mel Magdamo. Pwede bumati ka rin, Mel. Tapos si Atty. Pate na magsasatanong. Atty. Mel, bumati ka rin from Quezon.
Good morning, the best president we never had, Ernie Abella,
Salamat,
and the best spokes in recent history. Good morning po.
Good morning, yes.
Okay, for your information, Brother Ernie, si Mel Magdamo was used formerly from Comelec. Yan yung nag-expose nung folder na 3 pesos and 80 na ginawang 380 ang isang folder. So,
Wow.
nag-whistleblower yan. So, total na off the air yata si Pate. So, Atty. Mel, magtanong ka na rin kay Yusek Ernie.
Yusek, regarding the dream of President Rodrigo Duterte, he's still the president up until June 13. One of his dreams is as early as 2015, he went around the country on a listening tour for federalism. It appears now that the winning candidate is a candidate of the Partido Federal ng Pilipinas, but me being vice chairman of Partido Federal ng Pilipinas in the National Capital Region can feel that there are plans not to push through federalism, except for one. There was one senator, Robin Padilla. I think he's the only one left. What is your stand on this promise of President Duterte? His dream. He's practically begging Congress to shift to federalism, and Congress denied him. And then there's a new administration coming in who came in the platform of federalism. But right now, if you observe their body language, it seems that they don't like federalism again. They wait for 2028. What was your stand, Spock?
Siguro ganito, Mel. Yeah, I understand. I think I understand. We did not discuss this with PRRD, no. Pero I think I understand where he's coming from. He basically kasi coming from the South. Gusto niya siyempre yung autonomy, gusto niya yung resources, yung kumbaga, pera namin to, gagawin, ito yung gagawin namin. This is what we want to do. Kasi nga naman, dehado, hindi ba? Whether you like it or not, dehado talaga. The ones who really take full advantage of everything is those who are in quote-unquote Imperial Manila, hindi ba? Ganun yun. So I think that's where the dream comes from. But like Frank Drilon, quote-unquote, points out also, alam mo, yung LGU is actually already very, very powerful right now. Very, very powerful. And truth to tell, well, the other aspect is kung ilalagay mo sa kung itulak mo yung federalism, lalakas lang yung yung mga dynasties, no? The local dynasties, and they could the dream of consolidating, for example, the present administration wants to consolidate power, natural, di ba? They want to be able to manage the situation. Mahihirapan sila pag yun ang tatakbuhin, hindi ba? Kasi nahawakan mo na, tapos bibitiwan mo pa, parang gano'n. That's my understanding. On the other hand, Mel, I think, personally, I think what we really need is to really understand, to get used to the idea of what democracy is all about. Kasi sa parang naudlot yung ating social evolution, naudlot. Hindi pa tayo feudal. Hindi pa tayo feudal, na-colonize tayo ng Spain. Tapos kung ang lumaki tayo as isang bansa of colonials, kahit na yung pangarap niya na Juan Luna at ni Jose Rizal was to be recognized in the Spanish courts. I mean, they weren't even thinking of independence. Mabuti nga, we had somebody like Bonifacio who said, tama na, Tapos the main chance that we had of sana tasting what it would mean to be independent and to be a democratic. nina, nawala pa sa kamay natin when the Spaniards sold us to the US. So naudlot pa. So we've never had that birthing experience na kilala natin kung sino tayo. You know, Joe Almonte has a brilliant little book called Level the Playing Field. Sabi niya, what we really need is a confident national identity. Wala tayo noon, Mel. Except, you know, wala tayo talaga, grabe. It's so desperate. Anyway, lalo na yung mga ano ito atin lang you just between us girls and faith. Ano ba, yung ano, we used to do town hall meetings with Filipinos all over the world. Alam mo yung mga ano, yung mga Pilipino na nasa, let's say, US, ganon, hindi na sila Pinoy. They see us as other, you know, kayong mga Pilipino. Alam mo kung saan ako nakakita ng nakarinig, nakaramdam, na talagang Pilipino ba sila ngayon? Yung mga OFW na nasa Middle East, magtawagan yan, kabayan. So my point, Mel, is this. I think, kahit na hindi muna tayo mag-federalism, intindihin muna natin, let's understand this democratic, the whole process of democracy, or the power of the electorate, the power of the individual vote, no? The power and the voice of civil society. Yun na lagi ko tinutulak, the voice of civil society. So ang akin is, okay lang din kasi baka nagpalit lang tayo ng kahon, pero nakahon pa rin tayo. I believe it's about time that the Filipinos, and especially the churches, should be able to give, should be able to give a sense of confidence to the believers so that they can voice out with moral authority kung ano dapat ang demokrasya. So doon ako nagagaling. So long story short, kahit na hindi muna tayo mag-federalism, masanay muna tayo to the democratic practice. And whether you like it or not, I think this was a good exercise of the Duterte and Marcos campaigns. It was a good exercise, but hopefully we evolve, we evolve more in this particular administration. And I would consider the evolution kung the Filipinos will participate through the means of active civil society through the local government units.
Okay. So, Attorney Faith Pakis, nakakasama na po yan naka-join na yan dati 16th Congress. Baka ikaw naman magtanong sa bisita natin, Faith.
Opo, no? Natanong na po kasi yung what was the inspiration of Sir Ernie and then yung motivating factor na the highest position of the land, no? Sir, ang gusto ko pong malaman, dito naman po tayo sa electoral processes, no? Yung pong initiatory, no? Ano po yung nakikita niyo pong mass base? Yung pong, nung pong nagde-decide po kayo na tumakbo for presidency, no? Yung pong mass base o yung pong grassroots, no, na magsusupport po doon po sa inyong pagtakbo?
Yeah, by the nature of my relationships, yung mga faith-based communities,
Yes.
Faith-based communities. But I never had, but I was very cautionary in terms of approaching the churches, no, lalo the evangelical churches, because hindi mo na itatanong faith. I used to be board member of PCEC. I used to be a big deal with PJM. I used to be some sort of a big deal. And nakita ko yung no offense meant to anybody in particular, present company included. Pero nakita ko yung kahon na kahon. Parang the church has become a power institution. It's a power broker also. Buti naman sana kung big time na power. Small time nga, very it's almost pathetic, it's almost pathetic. Yeah. Attorney Batas, hindi ba? It's kind of pathetic the way we strut around and we posture. Wala. We don't amount to anything. We don't have money. We don't have economic power. The only thing that we have is, ang binibenta natin, mga bagay na hindi nakikita. Magaling, para tayo mga house show. Basically, we're like big promises and under-deliver, So, but anyway, I went to that, and there are what I call remnants, faith. May mga tao talaga na mananampalataya who have a sense of the kingdom and have a sense that righteousness should prevail in the nation. Ito yung pinuntahan namin, Diyos ko, and that's all. Well, that's all. But I just trusted that God would make the right connections, and there were a number of connections. But going back, faith, it was a faith-based community. Oo nga pala, faith ka rin pala.
Follow-up question po ako, Pastor.
Ano?
May follow-up question po ako.
No problem. Say, go ahead.
Sir, do you think our churches in practicing their faith is really is ready, no, or equipped or understands yung pong application ng practice of faith into the political arena?
Pakiulit nga because you were cutting out.
Opo, mahina mobile phone ako. Yung pong church-based community natin, no, na naging mass-based niyo po. Do you think yung pong practice of faith nila is equipped sila, or are they informed, or are they naturuan po ba sila yung practice of faith into application into the political arena po?
Hindi. Long story short, hindi. Short answer, hindi. Most evangelicals are not really evangelicals. Most are fundamentalists. And fundamentalists meaning to say 1 + 1, 2, 2 + 2, 4. Walang shades of gray, no? Walang shades of gray. There's no nuanced understanding. And also because fundamentalists are basically light years away from the Puritans. And the Puritans and the people who, the early settlers of the U.S., ang kanila kasi understanding of the way I understand it. Tayo kasi what is the difference between the fundamentalists and let's say in the Reformed, no? As far as I understand it, the fundamentalists believe that Jesus is going to come back in two or three stages. And they're not even in agreement regarding that. Pero the Puritans have an understanding that in the resurrection the millennium had begun, and that we're going on to ever increasing glory. So it is left to the believer to occupy, which in a lot of sense, of course, you can theologize and say, so, ang trabaho talaga ng simbahan is not to escape the world, because the work of the church is to occupy until he returns. Para ba, and we are so, look at churches, I studied a year and a half in sa Foursquare, Pentecostal Bible School. And one time I had a classmate who said, bahala na sila dyan, basta ako saved. My God, what are we teaching our people? Whatever happened to the power of the Spirit, the transformative power of the Spirit? Whatever happened to Jesus saying, pray that the kingdom of God, His will be done on earth as it is in heaven?
Exactly.
So ang ano ko dyan is, ang layo talaga ng most fundamentalist Filipinos. Most fundamentally Filipino. What we need, most of the reform, of course, we keep talking about salvation. We see the kingdom, but we do not enter into the kingdom. We need to engage. What we need is an engaged Christianity, something muscular.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Okay, maganda. Batas, follow up ka na, Tony Batas.
Oh, maganda masyado ito sinasabi ni Ka Ernie. Secretary Ernie Abella.
Guys, okay.
Definitely, what you're trying to tell us right now could be considered earth-shaking among many, many Christian believers. Marami pakeme-keme sa pagsali sa politika. Sabi, hindi daw dapat ang mga simbahan sumasali sa politika dahil madumi.
Sila sasali.
Yung aking pong itatanong sa inyo, masaya.
Oh,
Masaya.
sige.
Oh, ang dahilan ba kaya walang naipapanalo ang mga Kristiyano, lalo na mga simbahang Kristiyano? I mean, yung Kristiyanong kagaya natin, ano? Hindi yung Kristiyanong medyo may likod
Oo.
na nandiyan sa Diyos, na yung may Diyos na nasa likod, yung mga ganun, mga naka-imahen, larawan at ribulto.
Mm.
Ang dahilan ba kaya hindi natin maipanalo ang mga kandidato natin? Kasi hiwa-hiwalay din talaga ang Christian denominations. Walang iisang direksyon, walang iisang tinutungo, at hindi talaga nagkakaisa. Secretary Abella, because that really is the problem of Christian candidates who would like to present themselves. Alam natin kaagad na mukhang wala tayong pag-asa kahit sa mga kapwa Kristiyano. What do you think of that?
Una-una, bunga kasi yan ang pagka-protestante natin eh, no? Whether you like it or not, bunga tayo ng protesta. So, talaga, walang makakapagsabi sa akin kung anong paniniwala ako. Fine, But that is so inutil, we need to be, pero bunga rin nga. Pero hindi na pagkakahiwa-hiwalay kasi eh. Pagkahiwa-hiwalay din ang ating paniwala sa ating gawa. We tend to believe that once we are saved, we just need to keep ourselves holy so that we'll make it to the elevator that goes up to heaven. No, we're supposed to engage. What's the point of the first line of Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, the kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Anong say nun? It's meant to be engaged. Jesus was talking to the Jews. He wasn't talking to Christians. He was talking to his own people. He was talking, there should be change. And he was talking to the hypocrites. He was talking to the Pharisees, to the Sadducees. Sabi niya, ano ba kayo? Dapat nga magmahalan. Well, he didn't say magmahalan, but he did. That's what he said. He said there should be, we should love God with all heart, soul, mind, strength, and one another, because he saw that there was so much injustice and such a lack of compassion. And that's what happened. It's happened to us, unfortunately, brother Batas, nakakaiyak. Alam mo, lito tayo. Lito ang Filipino Christian Church. Lito. Hindi nila alam kung paano i-connect ang paniwala nila sa pang-araw-araw nila na buhay. Hindi integrated, hindi integral ang ating belief system. And it should be integrated. It should be. Yeah, I'm saying.
The question there would be how, Mr. Secretary? How should an ordinary Filipino Christian integrate his belief into his daily living? Yun yung pinag-uusapan namin sa 21 minutos.
Okay, let me give you
na umaga. Paano ba?
Let me tell you. First, it begins with the belief system. Una-una talaga, ano ba yung cornerstone? What is the cornerstone of our belief? The cornerstone which the builders rejected has become the capstone. And who is that capstone? Christ. We fail to understand John 1:14, that in the beginning was the Word was God, the Word was God, and the Word became flesh. We fail to understand who we are. I listen to pastors and they think like politicians.
Gusto ko yan, ha? Gusto ko yan, Ka Ernie. Gusto ko yan sinasabi mo.
I'm sure gusto niya. Alam mo, ang kulang talaga sa atin is look, between Jesus and Paul is a world of difference. And we keep talking about the gospel. Fine. But we need to understand that Paul broke ground for us. Kaya nga siya nagka-Damascus experience. He never met the physical Jesus. He just saw the risen Christ and sabi niya, buhay pala ito. Akala ko deadball na to. Hindi. Tapos inalam niya. Then sabi, it's no longer I that lives, but Christ lives in me, and the life I now live, I live by faith in the Son of God. Nagkaroon siya ng exchange of identity. He never saw himself anymore as Saul. He saw himself as Paul. He was now a man who was the living temple of God. He was now a man who was embodying Christ. And of course he was Paul. His identity was Paul. But his entire value system had completely changed. And we don't have that. We don't have that. What we have are people who are saved legalistically. We are now, sinasabi, now legally, forensically, you are now ready for heaven. What are you talking about? You know, ginulat ba kita, Faith? I'm saying that we should, sabi nga ni Paul, ni Jesus, John, basically John said, you have to be born again in order to see and to enter into the kingdom of God. Mukhang hindi born again ng mga tao natin. Because they see, quote unquote, but they are not able to participate. They should, to enter into, it's to participate in the kingdom of God. You know what we're doing? We're like a basketball game. We're just thousands and thousands of people watching 10 guys or 5 guys, fighting one another. Christianity has become a spectator sport. No, it should be, dapat magkasama tayong lahat. We should all be engaged in the transformation. What are we doing? He's gonna come back and say, "You foolish guys! You didn't do anything with my." I'm sorry. Yung the talents ba yan? Yeah. Anyway, ganun lang. Ganun kasimple.
Okay, Attorney Mel Magdamo, it's your turn.
Opo, no, just the reason why I raised this, no, because I still remember, I think you were there, Brother Ernie, in one of those listening tours way back in the year 2015 when Duterte, he was not yet even a candidate at that time, and he was talking about federalism. And then from 2016 to 2019 to 2020, he was almost begging on his knees, telling Congress. The reason why I'm talking about this is because there's one who, the mayor of the richest city in Imperial Manila, I'm referring to Joy Belmonte. She's the real person behind Partido Federal ng Pilipinas, and she's the one who really worked hard to build it up, Partido Federal ng Pilipinas. And then she was kicked out. No? Despite being the mayor of the richest city in Imperial Manila, she is looking for federalism, because she's looking at the example of Malaysia. Malaysia is just half century. We are 3 centuries or 4 centuries older than Malaysia. Malaysia was just born, I think, 1950s, 1960s. It's federal. And then also, she's also worried about the foreign debt, the utang natin sa ibang bansa. No? We might end up like Sri Lanka soon, maybe next year. And the sharing of the borrowings is that all the benefits of the borrowings are in Imperial Manila, but if all the rest, including Batanes Island, including Tawi-Tawi, they will share equal, basically in the same obligation to pay the foreign debts. And things might explode soon because we are, our yung utang natin sobrang laki. And then, kumbaga, kahit hindi i-federalize, i-chop yung country into pieces. Just federalize the obligation to the debt burden or obligation. Yung digital federalism, not literal. And there's no way for political dynasties to emerge from this. What do you think of that idea? I'm referring
Well,
to...
I have not really examined that. That sounds like a very interesting idea, Mel. No? Mukhang doable. Kaya lang, papayag ba naman niya kasi dadaan pa sa Congress siya, hindi ba? Alam mo naman, at this stage talaga, kahit na nga si yung Brasuan, hindi kinaya no? Hindi kinaya ng Brasuan. Pero it's worth thinking, but I'll tell you one of the platforms that I was running on was civil society. Kung pwede natin i-engage in civil society to fully to motivate civil society to fully involved in local governments. Kasi at the end, kasi we're trying to act from top down, hindi ba? Ano kung i-introduce natin yung idea na yan dito sa baba? Kasi whether you like it or not, civil society is legally recognized, and talagang may puwang sa local government unit kung pwedeng tawag nito, pwedeng makialam ang civil society. So the Republic Act 1991 ba yan? 1999. But anyway, my point, Mel, is Kung meron man, I would say, ang pwedeng palakarin yan by mobilizing civil society. For example, for example, concerned believers of, tiga saan ka ba? Batangas?
Quezon Province po. Actually,
Okay,
I'm Quezon City. I just married somebody
Ano
in Quezon Province.
Ayun. So kunyari meron kayong grupo. Ipasok niyo na. Alam mo, how does this creative, kasi we're actually asking for creative destruction, hindi ba? Talagang habang nandyan sila sa poder, hindi talaga mabubuwag yan. Pwedeng mabuwag. Sinasabi ko, pwedeng mabuwag. And I tell you, the secret is civil society. It might take a little bit of time, but it can fall. I'm sorry, I'm not asking for the government to fall. Let me be very clear about that. I'm just saying we can't transform the political structure so that there is more participation, there is more sharing, as you were saying, so that the burdens can be shared. And the secret is civil society. And that can be mobilized. And dito magaling. Ito yung sinasabi kanina ni Jojo ba yun, or somebody was saying that the power of the churches is because it has a long reach. So we can actually mobilize civil society, and if you work quickly, swiftly, and quietly.
Tama yun. So, kaya nabanggit ko nga nung tinayo natin itong One Voter Hope Movement. Nag-register kasi sinabi sa akin ng COMELEC, Pastor, maganda yung watchdog nyo. Kayo may mga churches kayo hanggang bundok. Kaya lang, nag-register sa akin, sabi, you are the organized group that is disorganized. So,
I'll tell you how it can be organized. It can be organized around interests.
Mhm.
It can be organized around interests, as civil society. And it can be done quickly. Kung ang interest mo is watchdog, fine. Kung ang interest ni Mel is yung federalism, fine. Ikaw magturo nun. Turuan mo sila. You take on the burden of educating your constituents. Pero it can be done. And it can be done very quickly. Even within this coming 6 years. Pwede yan.
Di po ba, Secretary Abella, Attorney Magdamo, Pastor Jojo, isn't it that under our 1987 Constitution, there's already a provision, but civil society is not referred to as civil society, but NGOs, non-governmental organization. In fact, they have been granted under the 1987 Constitution ng kapangyarihang makialam sa decision-making process without actually saying kung ano yung proseso na dapat maisagawa ng NGOs and or civil society groups. Ito yung tinatawag nilang people power provision under the 1987 Constitution. But mukhang hindi na take advantage ito, Secretary Abella.
Correct. Alam mo, pero actually, sa local government code, may puwang na. It's legal. Meron na talagang puwang.
Yes.
Ang ganda, i-pull out ko lang. It's in part of my folders. But you can check it out. Local government. Isa pang alam mo pwedeng i-activate ng polisiya. Yung sinain na ni Marcos, yung Magna Carta for Social Justice, he signed it but it was never implemented because then he began to submit to the World Bank, IMF. Pero ang ganda-ganda yung Magna Carta for Social Justice. Alam mo, if we activate that, my God, it's there, We can bring it back to the sun. We are in but not of this world, right? If we think less as politicians, but as prophets. Yun.
Ang binabanggit niya ba yung Magna Carta for public social workers o
no, it's called Magna Carta for Social Justice and Economic Freedom. Sinainan ni Marcos yan. He signed it but it was never implemented.
Walang lumalabas kasi sa Google, Ernie. I'm right now looking at it sa Google.
If you give me your email, I'll try to send you a copy of that.
All right. I think po pwede 'yon. Maganda 'yon. That's
going to be ganda. Hindi nga na-establish. Hindi niya na-carry out. Because we came under the thumb of World Bank and IMF and WTO, GATT, everything.
Are you saying the IMF, World Bank, etc., are not for social justice?
They're not. Obviously, they're not. You
Right?
know, whether you like it or not, they're pro, what do you call it? They're pro development. You know, re- how do I put it? Without sounding like a conspiracy theorist, you know, ano talaga, we have to look out for ourselves. Wala tayong kaibigan, quote unquote.
Mhm, mhm,
Wala, let us not be naive. Wag naman tayo masyadong ako tiga-probinsya ako, pero wag naman tayo masyadong probinsyano. Let us not be awed by the city lights. No.
Okay.
We need to understand, for example, una-una, lagi akong tinatanong dati, sabi ko, for example, what about independent foreign policy? Lagi ko sinasabi, tama si Duterte, maintain independent foreign policy, tapos lagi ko sinasabi, magpayaman tayo, ayusin natin ang buhay natin, wag muna tayo, magpalakas muna tayo, at tapos pag later down the road, kung magkamali man sila na yurakan tayo, ay pagsisisihan talaga nila dahil kaya nating baliin ang mga paa nila or something like that. I mean, what I mean to say is, we need to be able to stand up for what is truly right, but we need to be able to gain the power of true unity. We need to be in agreement. Yun, di ba? If two of you agree on earth as touching anything upon heaven, so forth and so on, then it will work out for us. And I believe that. I totally agree with that. Totally agree. And it works. It's a scientific, it's so yun. So I would, if there's any takeaway ko dito is, Joe, I think your group should mobilize civil society as far as you can, based around your own interests. It doesn't have to be one super civil society. Small movements lang para hindi naman kayo small movements, and then that parties actually participate. And Magali, you have all these lawyers with you. You know exactly what to do. You know how to to maneuver your way. Pero yun.
Tama. Tama yung Brother Ernie, yung ako talaga lumakas lang loob ko. Siyempre, the Lord is there. Kaya lang eto si Atty. Mel Magdamon, hindi ko yan kilala. Napanood ko lang yan sa TV kay Boy Abunda tungkol dito sa folder. Tapos si Batas, narinig ko na rin yan. Pero alam mo, may experience na rin yan. Siyempre, hindi ko alam kung anong year niya sa tumakbo. So sabi ko, total may mga political inclination na tayo naririnig din. I think we have to do something. So tinanong ko nga yung, Pastor, baka maimbita ka na sa yung ayusin daw yung political system sa Philippines. So siguro,
Okay.
Ernie, with your experience, dumami ng political party, lahat-lahat, ano bang suggestion mo na are we going back to two-party system o kahit dagdagan ng isa, tatlo lang para hindi magulo? It's up to you.
Ang ano ko is makinig tayo sa mga pero ang dapat ma-reform is the party system, no? We need to be able to emphasize that it should be issue-based. It should be issue-based. Yun. Dapat malinaw yan. So, actually, that's preparatory for, correct me if I'm wrong, this can be in preparation for the parliamentary system. Kung i-reform natin. Actually, hindi ba itong party system naman natin, ano lang yan eh. It's an accident it's a freak accident, hindi ba? Uy, nalimutan natin, nandiyan pa pala. It's like an appendix. We should have cut it off a long time ago. No, hindi naman kasi tayo parliamentary. But the point is, doon ako nagsisimula. We need to get away from personality basis, personality politics, and then bring it to issue. What are the issues? What are you fighting for? And I try to be as faithful to that when I ran when we campaigned. I always brought it back. Ano ba yung pananaw nyo? Pananaw natin isang matuwid, mapayapa at masayang bayan. At tinatakbo na at naniniwala tayo na tatlong pillars yon. Unang-una, ang tawag nito, patas na lipunan, gobyernong nararamdaman, matatag na bayan, matatag na bayan. It talked about civil participation of civil society, a government that can, and I emphasize agriculture, digital, and everything. And then of course yung tawag nito, national, yung mobilizing the national corps, national volunteer corps. And I believe it can still work, and I think we should work. We should have yung parang parang domestic peace corps. Sila yung magtigadala. Sila yung tigadala ng pagmamahal sa bayan, pag-replanting, yung pag-reforestation, yung sa mangroves around the kumbaga meron talagang work. Kumbaga actually not so much military, pero civil involvement. And then pwedeng magpasweldo. Pero the point is dapat may issue. Malinaw yung issue mo. Hindi, actually, I was rather disappointed by Harry. I mean, I didn't like. I mean, atin lang ito. I mean, no offense, no nothing. But I wish Harry didn't stoop down to dancing. He didn't have to do that. He didn't have to do. I wish he didn't do that.
Okay. So anyway, ano pala tayo? Live kasi to. Okay lang. So, Attorney Mel, nakita ko talaga si Attorney Mel Magdamo talaga, gustong-gusto niya yung issue related. So, Attorney Mel, explain mo nga yung sabi mo, gusto mo mangyari talaga.
Total, minention niyo na rin, brother, minention niyo na rin niya yung 1899 na history, shift from Spanish rule to American rule, na binenta ng Spain yung Philippines. Minention nyo na rin yung parliamentary. Kasi po yung 1899 Constitution natin is parliamentary. Yung Malolos Constitution.
Correct.
And brother, it never died. I'm challenging anybody to a debate to prove that the 1899 Constitution is dead. Because it never died. It was never repealed. It's a living constitution until today. In fact, if you take your oath under the 1899 Constitution, you are the president of the Philippines under the 89 Constitution. If you take your oath just today, right now, you take your oath before Batas Mauricio, you become a president under the 1899 Constitution because it's a living constitution. But anyway, that's just food for thought. My advocacy today under the 1987 Constitution is the people power provisions, people initiative provisions, which is still very much alive until today.
Correct.
Including the Citizen Assemblies provision, the one done by Marcos in 1973. It's still in the local government today. and President Duterte signed a proclamation 599 saying that the twice a year a barangay assembly day, which is every fourth Saturday of March and every second Sunday of October, it is barangay assembly day where you can launch people initiatives. President Duterte made it all weekends, all Saturdays and Sundays of March and all Saturdays and Sundays of October in Proclamation 599, which is signed in the year 2018. So we can launch our civil society.
Hindi ba? Meron It's just a question of recognizing it and fully utilizing it.
And can President Ernie Abella be the president of that People's Initiative?
Alam mo kuya, basta andyan ka lang sa kanan ko. Hindi, kailangan talaga natin kasi syempre ang akin lang naman is just a sense and intuition of, but the ones who can provide actual meat to the bone is people like you. So help us to understand it, and we're willing to take these things on. Alam mo kasi may mga kaibigan ako, may civil society, pero for example, the anti-vax, the anti-this, the anti-that, which is also another way of looking at things. Pero ang akin, I'd like to approach this from a more positive point of view, that we can build a nation based on positive values, not necessarily nagkipag-away tayo. So, ako, naghahanap talaga ako, hindi naman naghahanap. I'm still in the process of discerning what the emerging future will bring. Ayan, mga tipong ganyan, mga usapan. Better things to come. Ayun. Sige.
So, tama.
Oh, go ahead.
Sige. Tuloy lang. Tama yan, Brother Ernie. kailangan din namin yan. Pati si Brother Mel Magdamo talagang nasa
Mel,
hardison
medyo
na
lang.
yan.
Are your roots Ilonggo?
Yes po, my Magdamo surname is Ilonggo and Davao actually.
Correct.
Most of my relatives are
We're very close
Aklan.
to, we're very close to the Magdamos, including Helen Magdamo before, The other one, see the architect ba yun? Architect Magdamo. The one
Yes,
who-
Davao. In Davao. Most of my relatives are Davao.
Ganun ba? Okay, man.
Yes, hello. Doc. Opo.
Anyway,
Oo, yung
Joe, meeting muna yan,
anyway,
Joe.
sa 30th, sa 30th at isusum ni Bern para makita na natin lahat ng
Would you be willing to be the president of the People Initiative?
para malaman natin.
Bigyan mo ako ng bigyan mo lang ako ng understanding. Bigyan mo ako ng one paragraph, one page.
Nasa pangalan lang, hindi naman tunay. So,
Sige po.
lagay mo lang sa calendar mo.
Maybe, can I
Zoom niya yung gagamitin.
what you call it? After this,
Monday.
email addresses.
7 p.m.
Ayun, Jojo talaga. Si ernieabella@gmail.com.
Yun. ernieabella@gmail.com.
Padala mo sa akin. Tapos bigay mo
Sige po,
mention.
Ernie Abella.
Lowercase. Lowercase. Kung gusto mo, do you use kung if you think it's confidential, padala mo through Proton Mail.
Yun, sige po. Hindi naman. Anyway, I Proton Mail, so I'll send it to both. It's an advocacy for a long time na it's more on
alam mo, this excites me kasi akin talaga, sabi ko, I know that may patutunguhan ito eh.
Kasi it's more of love revolution. It's more of for example, institutionalizing community pantries. You've heard na
yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah. Yung people's dapat dapat putaktihin natin ang people's initiative sa mundo, ang Pilipinas, hindi ba?
Kasi the people still remember you. You're still hot as a presidential. You're there in the ballot. Letter A. You're the first person in the ballot.
Correct. Alam mo,
well, it's hot in the people's memory.
Alam mo, I go out and people actually recognize me. People actually greet, nagpapapicture and stuff like that. So sabi ko, okay, naalala na. Sige, padala mo lang sa akin, Mel, tapos pag-usapan natin. Ako, I'm willing to do that. Basta people's initiatives. Kasi yan ang unang pillar civil society.
Opo Yung Ernie Abella, walang dot yun. Yung Ernie is parang yung standard Ernie. Tuloy-tuloy. At gmail.com.
Yeah.
It's more on parang with you as the or whatever president or whatever title you wish. It's actually constructive. It won't hit anybody because it is uniting actually, because it's using the 1973 what Marcos did in 1973 citizen assemblies.
So buhay pa yon. O paano yan?
Akala kasi ng mga tao patay na yon. It's in section 398 of the local government code, which means you can do it. What Marcos did in 1973, although it can no longer make a constitution. Unlike during Marcos' time, it can make a constitution. It made the 1973 constitution during Marcos' time, but it can still do much today as a law. Instead of instead of what Ramos did and the people, yung kay Ramos pirma, yung Concord ni Erap, yung Sigaw ng Bayan ni Gloria, which is political It is for extending the term of the president. But people initiative for the people to improve the people's lives. Like for example, to request for recalibration, recomputation of how much yung inutang ng Pilipinas. Ito ba, bakit ako magsishare ng ganyang kalaki sa pagbayad ng utang? Hindi naman ako nakinabang dyan. Kung it's accounting
Recalibrate nila yung ang poverty level.
Yung parang gano'n, yung dito sa mahirap, bakit? Parang trend, hindi naman umabot sa bayan namin, ba't namin babayaran yan? Ganun yung isip ng mga tao yung...
Correct. Isa pa yung katulad nun, sinasabi nila, bumaba daw ang poverty. Nagbumaba lang dahil ni-recalibrate yung calculation. Talaga, kung gagawin mo na 1,000, ano lang, yun ang poverty level, 1,000. Hindi naman eh. Actually, sa totoo lang, 12,000, for a family of 5, 12,500 pesos a month is poverty level, is below poverty level. So, we need to do a lot of recalibrations also.
Isan ko, baka later, pagagandahin ko, gagawin ko PowerPoint. Para
Attorney Mel,
pero mga later today, parang magandang PowerPoint.
Attorney Mel,
Apo,
yung ginawa natin, yung programa ng One Vote,
ayun.
yun ang direction na pupuntahan natin kasi right after this, yung ginawa nating programa sa One Vote.
Opo.
Ang sinasabi mo palagi, di ba? Bumoto sa programa, hindi sa tao.
Vote for programs, not
We
for
will vote
politicians.
for the program now.
Mhm.
Through that people's initiative, yung mga present natin noon sa kanila sa One Vote, na like what Switzerland is doing, di ba? And all these European countries, they normally vote programs hindi na tao. Kaya nga, I'm excited nung pinag-usapan namin ni Jojo. So what's now? After the election, ano nang gagawin ng One Vote?
Merong president na tayo. Ayun, President Ernie
Yun nga,
Abella, number one sa
Secretary
balota.
Ernie.
President, not secretary. Number one sa balota.
Yeah, Secretary Ernie, why don't you,
Kaya nga, ako naman, bukas naman sa gano'n, Rudy, no? Basta
okay.
padala sa akin para alam ko na may inuuuhan ko. Baka mamaya,
Okay
binenta
po.
ko na yung kapitbahay ko, hindi ko alam.
Sa
Sige,
Tagaytay
sige.
lang po ba kayo? Sa Tagaytay lang kayo?
Oh, Rudy.
Okay, andito po ako sa Dasma lang. Sa Dasma lang ako nakabase. Okay. So one time we will meet you, siguro
Sige,
ni
sige.
Attorney Mel. Kasi
Oo.
Attorney Mel
Madalas
and
naman,
I are
Tagaytay.
working on it. Tinatrabaho namin ito.
Sige, kung ano man.
Sige,
Sabi si
sige.
Jojo.
Kapi-kapi tayo dyan.
Anything sa Tagaytay, convenient to you, I'm willing to go there.
Okay.
Siyempre, anyway.
Ah.
Otherwise, everything, mas malamig dito.
Mas maganda dyan.
Pati ano lang, may suggestion ako, huwag kayong pumarito ng weekend.
Okay.
Traffic.
Oo, grabe.
Oo nga po. Traffic
So,
talaga.
maganda yan, Attorney Mel and Rudy. Malapit-lapit na kayo sa Tagaytay. You said, tama naman sabi ni Ernie, wag lang weekends. You can sit down para maalalayan tayo ng itong our next move. No? Maganda yan. So, that's good. So, anyway, we'll just give us our closing comments. Malapit-lapit na Rudy. So,
Yeah, it's 2 minutes na lang.
okay, Brother Ernie, give us your closing comments. Tapos si Mel, then I'll just close it.
Sige.
Okay.
Una, papasalamat ako, Pastor Jojo. No? It's really been, it's been very helpful for me. It clarifies my, this time talking with you. It helps clarify my thinking, tsaka yung conclusions ko. No? But again, I'm so thrilled, I'm so inspired that kausap ko mga tao na meron palang plano rin. So, nakikita ko naman, alam mo, we don't need a super group at this stage. What we just need is collaboration. We need to collaborate. We need to work together. And if we can agree, fine. If we do not agree, fine. Ganun lang. But walang basagan ng trip, walang personalan.
Amen.
Pero ang ano ko lang talaga dyan is unahin natin, linawin lang natin sa sarili natin. Ano ba yung inner core natin? What is our core value? Ano ba talaga yan? I know. I suspect some. Are you Catholic, Mel Magdamo?
For both. I mean, because
We're all born
my mother
again.
is Catholic. She got
You're all
well.
born again. Kasi
Yes.
I was going to
Born
say,
again.
if you're Catholic, I have the right symbol for you. Alam mo, sabi ni Teilhard de Chardin, the heart of the matter is like the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Yung kumbaga, ang talagang loob natin is Kristo. Yung buhay,
Amen.
yung buhay na yung nilalaman natin, si Kristo. Ano ba ibig sabihin ng Kristo? Righteousness, katuwiran. Dapat matuwid. Yun lang. Dapat matuwid tayo sa isa't isa. Matuwid tayo sa ating relasyon. At the end of the day, sabi nga ni Paul, faith, hope, and love, and the greatest is love. I love you guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Attorney Mel. Sandali lang. Mel, paalam ka rin, then I'll just close. Okay.
Napaisip ako
Magdamo.
doon sa ano yung sinabi ni Brother Ernie na ano, yung kay Paul saka yung Gospels, they are worlds apart and yet they harmonize in a deeper level.
Correct.
Yun ba yung napansin ko, yung Pauline yung Gospel saka yung four Gospels, yung Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Yun po. Salamat
Opo.
sa amin for the food for thought.
So, tama-tama tayo kasi kay Rudy, ni-remind din niya ako. Yung one vote kasi medyo pa-discourage na ako. Pero dahil nakasama ko na sila, Mel Magdamo, si Atty. Batas, natayo namin yung kilusan ng mamamayan para sa mabuting bayan.
Matuwid.
Based on Proverbs 14:34. Pero this Thursday, meron tayo ulit 6 p.m. Atty. Mel. We will invite Ernie just to listen to it. Kasi ang magpipresent to, preparation nila to for 25 years na sila. 2 or 3 lang sila. Low profile. Pero nakita yung, this is the model of Jesus Christ, sabi nila. So magandang mapakinggan. So anyway, mga kapatiran, salamat po. Every Wednesday, sabi na nila, tuloy-tuloy lang tayo. 2 or 3 lang, huwag tayo matakot. Marami nanonood sa atin, nakikinig. So every 10 o'clock to 11, kung meron tayong imbitadong bisita, praise God. Kung tayo, natututo kami, kay Brother Mel Magdamo, kay Batas, we just encourage each other. So again, good day, magandang hapon po at umaga sa inyo lahat. Salamat ka Ernie Abelia, ang ating mga kapatiran na nakikinig. Thank you.